if I give him the opportunity to fight me, I want to be so compensated. I want to say it, I want that fuck you money, honestly. And that's just what it is. That's just what it is. Or else my life is perfect without him. I don't need him at all, and he needs me. And that's a good place to be in a negotiation.
Is Jon Jones scared to fight you?
Yes, absolutely.
You like can empathize with that?
I respect it. I respect it. But if you're going to ask me the straight up question, is Jon Jones afraid to fight me? The honest answer would be yes.
The beginning, and Jon Jones agreed to do the fight. So Jon Jones was offered the deal and accepted the deal.
The rivalry between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall has long transcended the boundaries of sport and the UFC octagon. This feud has evolved into a geopolitical standoff of sorts. All parties are locked in, Tom Aspinall and the entire MMA fanbase, who are desperately calling for what many are already dubbing the greatest heavyweight fight in history, and Jon Jones standing alone in a one-man war against the whole world. Even his longtime mentor, Dana White, is treading carefully, staying neutral while promising the fans that this epic showdown will happen no matter what.
Would you guarantee 100% we see that fight?
Yeah, I'll say 100%.
This fight is slowly starting to resemble the infamous showdown between Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. But unlike that cursed lightweight matchup, which we'll probably only witness in a parallel universe, the Jon versus Tom clash is still alive. There's still hope. And in today's video, we're diving deep into this rivalry, how it all began, how the fighters' narratives have evolved over time, and most importantly, what's next for this heavyweight saga. But before we start, hit that subscribe button. Unless you want to see Jon Jones hold onto that belt for another year, let's go. Not many remember how it all really started, but let me remind you, one of Tom's very first callouts of Jon Jones wasn't exactly that respectful. In fact, it was a pretty cheeky jab on Twitter back in 2023, long before Tom had the global spotlight on him. Jones didn't take it lightly. He quickly shut the young Brit down, reminding him that he was a nobody at the time and had no business even mentioning his name. Tom, to his credit, backed off, apologized, and shifted his focus to other contenders. To this day, that online exchange remains the only time Jon Jones came out on top in their war of words.
That's fucking illegal.
Smash that like button with your elbow if you remember it. Eventually, Tom switched up his approach, big time. His tone became more respectful, calculated, and measured when calling out the one and only. No more reckless jabs, just calm confidence and quiet pressure. This shift in rhetoric, combined with his lightning-fast assassinations in the cage, earned him global recognition and the love of fans worldwide. All right, now let's get into the hot phase of the conflict. After an incredibly easy win over Cyril Gane, Jon Jones decided not to take a break and wanted to defend his title as soon as possible against none other than the veteran and one of the greatest heavyweights in history, Stipe Miocic. The UFC brass liked the matchup and booked it for November at Jon's home turf, Madison Square Garden. Still, even then, the fight drew criticism as the former champ hadn't fought since 2021 and was already in his 40s. Jon's legendary resume and dominant title win gave Dana's favorite enough pull to call for this fight, even despite the injury that ended up stalling the UFC's heavyweight division and marked a turning point in his career. Back in November 2023, Jon had a chance to put the Tom Aspinall talk to rest once and for all, if only he didn't injure himself.
Breaking news from last night, Jon Jones out. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you found out and kind of the process to make a new fight?
The guy came to fight. It's the first injury he's ever had. And listen to me, I'm not defending Jon Jones.
This is #1 bullshit.
The UFC had to introduce an interim belt just to secure a worthy co-main for November, and two undefeated prospects clashed to determine who'd inherit the Hachiko status, passed down from Michael Chandler, while waiting for the GOAT to return.
I'll see you at the top.
The odds were seen as nearly even going in, but the moment both men stepped into the cage, it was over fast for the Russian Bear.
Those leg kicks will pay dividends.
After yet another cage-side murder, Tom Aspinall publicly called out Jon Jones for the first time since their clash on Twitter. This time, the Brit took a respectful approach, praising Jones and giving him his flowers before issuing the challenge.
I think we should do Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones in Manchester. That is something special, and I'm sure the UFC are going to be on board with that. That would be special.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Jon, as expected, turned Tom down, saying he had already promised the fight to Stipe. Dana White backed him up, shutting down any talk of the matchup for now, insisting that nothing happens until Jon executes Joe.
You know, who's Joe? Who's Joe?
Maybe Tom deserves to fight Jon or deserves to fight Stipe, or maybe that's a better fight.
No. You do those two.
If you kick my ass in front of the whole world, I'm happy to put my hand out and go, listen, you're the better man. No problem. You took my dreams away from me, but at least I tried. But this ducking and diving is something that I don't really have respect for.
The entire MMA community started siding with the Brit, and that's when Jon's bald bodyguard, his unofficial stepdad, decided to step in.
No matter what you think of Jon Jones, he's the best ever, and he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. And he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
For months, Dana practically became a meme. Every interview, every podcast, no matter the question, he kept repeating the same thing over and over.
He's going to be 38 years old this summer. He looked incredible. I just don't know how any of you don't see that this guy's the fucking greatest fighter in the history of fucking people fighting.
We have to check that, Mom.
White became outright obsessed with Jon Jones. Anytime he heard the name Aspinall or even the slightest criticism of Jon, he'd erupt like Mount Vesuvius.
This fucking guy destroyed the best heavyweight in the division. Easily made it look like nothing. Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter fucking ever. Period. End of story.
Dana White seemed to be answering all of Tom Aspinall's calls himself, while the baddest man on the planet just lay silently on the couch, healing up and watching it all unfold with popcorn in hand.
Yeah, I like that. You're funny.
Once it finally hit Tom that the Jon Jones fight wasn't happening, he stepped up to defend his interim belt in a rematch against the only man in the UFC who managed to survive a fight with him without leaving concussed, Curtis Blades, a guy Jon had high hopes for. Despite their first fight ending quickly, Tom came in as a massive favorite, and the rematch was so one-sided, the Brit didn't even break a sweat as he pounded poor Curtis into the canvas.
Can't be reckless in Curtis. Oh, can't change big reactions.
Yeah, that's
Curtis
a nice combination.
Curtis
But the right hand right sits him down. Aspinall. Blades nearly down and out early. It's Aspinall.
The moment Tom scored yet another first-round jaw-dropping knockout, successfully defending the interim belt for the first time in 11 years, the aura around Jon started to fade. Even Jon's own fans began to admit that the Stipe fight looked more like a smokescreen, a way to dodge what might be the toughest challenge of his career. Though later, Jon's coach would give an interview claiming Tom had nothing that could surprise Jon, saying he's no different from anyone Jon's faced before.
I'm sure it's a frustrating position to be in. I know he's probably ready to go and ready to fight, but at the end of the day, Jon's the one with the undisputed championship belt, and Jon's the greatest of all time. And Jon will do things on his terms, on his schedule.
At that point, fans had stopped caring. No one was looking forward to Jones versus Miocic anymore, except for Jon himself, and of course Dana, who just couldn't let it go.
Jon Jones behind the scene is not a guy that turns down fights.
This is #1 bullshit.
In the lead up to the so-called Battle of the Pensioners, as MMA fans dubbed it, Tom's callouts hit a whole new level. Aspinall was dropping statements almost daily. He literally changed his job, started the duck meme that fans ran wild with, and even John himself stopped hiding the fact he didn't want to fight Tom.
You find it entertaining, but I find him annoying. And I just don't like him.
John, let's do it.
If that's not aura, then what is?
That's fucking illegal.
Every interview or statement from John was met with a response from Tom. He was everywhere. In John's Instagram comments, on Twitter, and even showed up to one of his fan meetups.
Just saying hello. Just saying hello.
All the best.
We'll do a quick picture.
Sure.
Yeah?
Let's get
A
it.
face-off. No.
Tom had turned into a full-blown stalker and a living nightmare for Bones.
John Jones has been saying to the media this week, and I'm sure there's more to come, but check out these.
You're beating guys who aren't even champions, and you consider yourself a champion. He's not a champion.
So John said I need to fight more champions, but this is the problem I've got. John is the champion, and he won't fight me. And he says that he won't fight me because it's too much of a gamble.
Aspinall to me is no difference than an Owen St. Prude or Dominic Reyes or Anthony Smith being like just another up-and-comer that's exciting right now. And I'm not into gambling my legacy for what's exciting.
And John, if you're not into gambling your legacy, that to me sounds like you're scared of losing against me.
Between the callouts, Tom publicly broke down John's style, explained how to beat him, and became obsessed. Meanwhile, John wrapped up the career of a 43-year-old veteran, ending the Biden era early in the process.
And John Jones systematically fucking picked him apart. His fight IQ is off the charts. It is hard talking to people who 99.9% of the media don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to fighting.
After beating Stipe, John didn't retire, leaving fans with a glimmer of hope that the fight with Tom could finally happen in 2025. Dana made it crystal clear, either John fights the interim champ or he walks away.
Against Pereira, a guy who's the same age as you, and we walk around the same exact size.
And he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
Right after the fight, John gave a promising interview saying, "I'm willing to fight Tom, but you're gonna pay me whatever I ask."
If I give him the opportunity to fight me, I want to be so compensated. I want to say it, I want that fuck you money.
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive.
Meanwhile, Tom was glowing after his win over Stipe. Clearly, the UFC brass had promised him something big. In December 2024, during an interview, John said he was more than confident he'd fight in 2025, and it finally felt like the long-awaited announcement was just around the corner, especially with Dana's recent comments backing it all up.
But you're a betting guy. Do you think you'll get back inside the cage in 2025 if we had a bet on that?
Yes, I will be competing in 2025, more than likely.
Yeah, I'll say 100%.
But as usual with John, the negotiations dragged on, according to various sources, including John's former best friend and his biggest enemy after Tom. John asked for $50 million. Others said he was asking for $30 million. And right now, both sides can't seem to reach a deal. Meanwhile, Tom started pushing a new viral narrative. "I'm gonna make John quit without even fighting."
Quite a while ago now, I will retire John Jones without even fighting him.
But that's not the case.
Over the past 6 months, John's rhetoric has been changing daily. One day he talks about his greatness and desire to fight. The next he says he's ready to give up the belt without a fight. And then he even calls out Hezbollah for a match.
Is he fucking awesome?
Jones talked about FU money and 6 months to prepare, and then said he hadn't really trained since his last fight. Dana's rhetoric is a bit different. The boss believes the fight is inevitable, or he's just stalling to keep partners and investors intrigued. And Tom? Well, Tom would probably fly to Albuquerque tomorrow to fight Jones, even in his garage, probably even if John had a gun on him.
You find it entertaining, but I find him annoying.
It's been almost 2.5 years since John became champion, and the GOAT still hasn't figured out what he truly wants: a comfortable retirement or absolute greatness and legacy. Knowing Jones and his tendencies, he strikes me as someone whose personal ambition outweighs everything else. And if that's the case, we really might never see his last dance. But on the flip side, the man who called him out has stripped him of his aura, his fan base, and most importantly, a piece of his honor. No one ever imagined that the great and fearsome Jon Jones would one day be called a duck or a coward. Trust me, no matter how sarcastically John plays it off, it eats at him from inside. If it didn't, he would have vacated the belt by now. Chances are, Dana, like a loving father, senses this and is trying to pressure the champ at any cost, just so we finally get to see the greatest heavyweight fight in UFC history. And believe me, the ending is very, very close.